The night before our wedding, she chose her ex at exactly 11:47 p.m., 13 hours before our wedding. My fiancé received a phone call from the man she once claimed she had forgotten. 30 seconds later, she was grabbing her car keys. Ethan, move. Claire Bennett stood in the middle of our apartment, still wearing the silk robe my mother had given her for the wedding morning. Her suitcase was packed. Her wedding dress hung by the window. On the dining table sat two untouched glasses of champagne. Everything was ready for us to become husband and wife. Yet the moment Adrian cold called, none of it mattered. He says he's seriously ill, Claire said. He's alone at the hospital. He has no family in the city. I stared at her. Tomorrow is our wedding. I know what tomorrow is. Then call an ambulance. Call the hospital. Pay for a private nurse. We can help him without you driving across the city in the middle of the night. Her expression hardened. You're making this about yourself. He called you, Claire, not a doctor, not an emergency service. He could be dying. And he suddenly started dying the night before our wedding. Her eyes flashed with anger. You've always been jealous of Adrian. I should have felt hurt. Instead, I felt something much colder. Recognition. Because I had lived through this night before. Before we continue, subscribe if you enjoy stories where betrayal has consequences and secrets never stay buried forever. And while you listen, ask yourself one question. If the person you loved abandoned you for someone else the night before your wedding, would you forgive them? Or would you let them walk away? The first time I lived that night, in my previous life, I begged Claire not to leave. We had been together for 7 years. When we met, neither of us had money. I worked 2 jobs while helping her launch a small design company from the back room of a rented apartment. I built her website, contacted investors and used nearly every dollar I had saved to keep the business alive. When the company finally began making real money, Claire held my face in her hands and promised that everything we built would always belong to both of us. Our families met. A date was chosen. Invitations were sent. Then Adrian returned. He was Claire's first love, the charming, mysterious man who had broken her heart in college and disappeared overseas without saying goodbye. Claire told me he meant nothing to her now. He's part of my past, she said. You're my future. I believed her. That was my first mistake. On the night before our wedding, Adrian called and claimed he was gravely ill. Claire insisted on going to him. I was afraid she would drive recklessly, so I went with her. Halfway to the hospital, she ran a red light while arguing with me. A truck came through the intersection. I saw it a second before she did. I pulled Claire toward me and took the worst of the impact. She escaped with minor injuries. I woke up unable to move my arms or legs. At the hospital, Claire cried beside my bed. She held my hand and promised she would never abandon me. You saved my life, she whispered. I'll take care of you for the rest of mine. 3 weeks later, she cancelled our wedding. 2 months later, she married Adrian. My parents asked only that she contribute to my medical care. The crash had happened while she was driving, and my family had already exhausted their savings. Claire refused. I never asked Ethan to protect me, she said. He made that choice himself. My mother stared at her as though she were looking at a stranger. He saved your life. That doesn't mean I owe him mine. Claire had once called me the love of her life. Now she spoke about me as if I were an unpaid bill she wanted removed from her desk. My mother's health collapsed under the stress. My father, who had always been the strongest man I knew, seemed to age 20 years in a matter of weeks. One loss followed another, until I had no family left to fight for me. Claire placed me under the supervision of a private caregiver, but she rarely checked whether I was being treated properly. When I tried to report the neglect, she accused me of creating trouble because I was jealous of her new marriage. I spent my final months trapped inside a body that could no longer defend itself. Claire visited me once near the end. She stood beside my bed wearing a diamond necklace Adrian had bought her. You need to let go of the past, she said. I looked at the woman I had loved for 7 years and understood that she had never loved me in the same way. I had been useful. Adrian was the man she wanted. And when I was no longer useful, she discarded me. I died with one regret. Not that I had saved her, but that my parents had paid the price for my blindness. Then I opened my eyes, and I was standing in our apartment again, 13 hours before the wedding. Claire was holding her car keys. Adrian was waiting for her. This time, I didn't block the door. The second chance. Go, I said. Claire froze. What? You want to see Adrian? So go. She looked suspicious, almost disappointed. That I wasn't fighting harder. You're not going to stop me. No. I quietly opened the recording application on my phone and placed it face down on the table. But understand this clearly. The moment you walk through that door, our engagement is over. Her lips parted. 4 years. Claire had used the threat of leaving whenever she wanted control. I had always been the one who apologized, compromised, and begged her to stay. She believed I would do it again. You're being dramatic, she said. We can postpone the wedding for 1 day. This isn't about 1 day. Adrian may not have another day. Then show me the hospital report. She went silent. No doctor has called you, I continued. No nurse has contacted you. Adrian hasn't even told you what hospital he's supposedly in. He simply called and said he needed you, and you were ready to abandon our wedding. He has no one else. He has you. Apparently, he always has. Claire's face turned red. If Adrian and I were doing something wrong, do you think I would be marrying you? That's a question you should ask yourself. She pointed at me. If you force me to choose tonight, you'll regret it. I'm not forcing you to do anything. I'm finally allowing you to make your choice. Fine. Claire grabbed her handbag. We're done. But when you realize what you've lost, don't come crawling back to me. She walked out. The door closed. And for the first time into lifetimes, I didn't chase her. I stood in the silent apartment, listening to the faint hum of the refrigerator. Then I stopped the recording. 7 years had ended in less than 7 minutes. Strangely, I didn't cry. I photographed the empty doorway and wrote a short public statement. Tonight, hours before our wedding, my fiancé ended our engagement so she could rush to her former boyfriend after he claimed to be ill. I have accepted her decision. Tomorrow's wedding is cancelled. I'm sharing this only to prevent false stories from being told later. One attached a small portion of the recording and posted it. Not because I wanted strangers to attack Claire. I wanted a timestamp, evidence. In my previous life, Claire and Adrian had rewritten everything that happened. This time, I would make sure the truth existed. Before they had a chance to bury it, my parents called within minutes. My mother sounded frightened. Ethan, what happened? I told them everything. When I finished, my father remained silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Do you still want to marry her?" No. It was the easiest answer I had ever given. Then come home, he said. Whatever happens next, you won't face it alone. Those words nearly broke me. In my previous life, I had lost them because I refused to let go of Claire. This time, they were alive. This time, I would protect them. The accident. The next morning, I went to work. Our wedding venue called repeatedly. Relatives sent messages. Claire's mother left 11 furious voicemails, demanding that I delete my statement before people began asking questions. I ignored them all. Around noon, one of my co-workers approached my desk. "Ethan, have you heard about Claire?" I looked up. "What about her?" "She was in a crash last night." For a moment, the office disappeared. I saw flashing lights, broken glass, a hospital ceiling. But then I looked down at my hands. They moved. My legs still held me upright. This time, I had not been in the car. "Is she alive?" I asked. "Yes, but the injuries are serious." I closed my eyes. The crash had still happened. The only difference was that I hadn't been there to absorb the consequences for her. Claire survived, but her spinal injuries left her with permanent mobility loss. The doctors warned that she would need extensive care for the rest of her life. Adrian disappeared before sunrise. The supposedly dying man had been healthy enough to turn off his phone, leave his apartment and vanish the moment he learned about Claire's condition. By that evening, Claire's parents were looking for me. They waited outside my office building. Her mother rushed toward me the moment I stepped outside. "Ethan, how can you be at work while Claire is lying in a hospital?" I moved away from her reaching hands. "She's no longer my fiancée." Her father glared at me. "You were supposed to marry her this morning. She ended our engagement last night." That was an argument. Couples argue. She chose another man. She was confused. She was very clear. Claire's mother suddenly sat down on the pavement and began crying loudly enough to attract attention. My daughter gave that man 7 years of her life. Now that she's disabled, he wants to throw her away. Several people stopped. Phones appeared, exactly as they had planned. In my previous life, I had been too shocked and ashamed to defend myself. This time, I raised my phone and played Claire's recorded voice. "Fine, we're done. But when you realize what you've lost, don't come crawling back to me." The crowd became silent. Then I played the part where Claire admitted she was leaving to find Adrian. Her mother's crying stopped immediately. "Your daughter ended our relationship before the crash," I said. "Her accident is tragic, but I did not cause it. I was not in the car. I was not driving. I did not ask her to leave. You should be looking for the man who created the false emergency that sent her onto the road. The people around us began whispering. Claire's parents left before the situation could become more humiliating, but they were not finished. They went to my parents' home next. My mother called me while they were still pounding on the door. By the time I arrived, my father had already placed himself between them and my mother. Your son must marry Claire, her father demanded. He has a responsibility. My son has no responsibility to marry someone who abandoned him, my father replied. Claire made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. Cancelling your wedding to chase an ex-boyfriend is a decision. She needs someone to care for her. Then find Adrian. He isn't answering us. My father gave a humorless laugh. So the man she chose has disappeared. And now you want the man she rejected to clean up the consequences. Claire's mother pointed at me. If you refuse, everyone will know what kind of heartless man you are. I stepped forward. Tell anyone you like. Just make sure you include the recording. They left with nothing. A week later, they tried a different weapon. Public opinion. The man with 7 million followers. Marcus Lane called himself a relationship mediator. In reality, he was an online celebrity who turned private suffering into entertainment. He had 7 million followers, a camera crew, and a reputation for destroying people before they had a chance to explain themselves. Marcus approached me outside my office. The camera was already recording. Ethan Cross, he announced. Do you believe abandoning a disabled woman days after promising to marry her makes you a good man? I looked directly into the lens. Claire ended our engagement before her accident. Marcus smiled as though he had been waiting for that answer. So you admit that one argument was enough for you to erase 7 years of love? It wasn't an argument. She left me to meet her former boyfriend, a man she considered a friend, hours before our wedding. Perhaps she needed compassion. Perhaps Adrian needed an ambulance instead of another man's fiancé. His smile weakened. Marcus stepped closer. If you had stopped Claire from leaving, she wouldn't have crashed. Stopped her how? By locking the door. You could have gone with her. In my previous life, that was exactly what I had done, and it had cost me everything. Claire was an adult making her own decision, I said. You don't get to blame another person because he refused to sacrifice himself for her choice. Marcus lowered his voice. Come to the hospital. Let her speak. If you refuse, the public will draw its own conclusions. I agreed, not because Marcus frightened me, because I wanted every liar in the same room. Claire looked pale when I entered the hospital. Her parents stood beside her bed. Marcus and his crew positioned themselves near the door. For 1 second, Claire's expression softened. Ethan. Then the performance began. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was angry that night. I never truly wanted to end our relationship. You said we were done. I didn't mean it. You removed your engagement ring. I was emotional. You left to find Adrian. He was sick. Where is he now? Claire looked away. Marcus interrupted. Ethan, must you interrogate her? Well, she's vulnerable. I'm asking why the man she risked our wedding to save hasn't visited her once. He's under emotional pressure, Claire said. Quickly. I almost admired her loyalty. Adrian had lied to her, abandoned her, and refused to answer her calls. Yet she was still protecting him. Then the hospital door opened. Adrian walked in. He wore an expensive coat and an expression carefully designed to appear ashamed. The moment he saw me, he dropped to his knees. Ethan, this is my fault. Marcus's camera moved closer. Adrian grabbed my trouser leg. Claire loves you. She only came because she was worried about me. Please forgive her. I stepped away. You told her you were dying. I was struggling emotionally. You said you were in a medical emergency. I may have exaggerated. The room went silent. Claire stared at him. Exaggerated. Adrian stood slowly. I didn't know you would drive that fast. You said you could barely breathe. I was lonely. You told me the doctors were afraid you wouldn't survive the night. Adrian glanced at the camera. I made a mistake. Claire's mother slapped him. You destroyed my daughter's life. Adrian stumbled backward. I didn't force her to come. But you called her the night before our wedding, I said. Why? He didn't answer. Marcus quickly stepped between us. This isn't about Adrian. This is about Ethan's refusal to honor his commitment. I looked at him. You knew Adrian was your friend before you came to interview me, didn't you? Marcus's face changed. Only slightly. But it was enough. You didn't come here to mediate, I continued. You came to create a villain so Adrian wouldn't have to take responsibility. Marcus motioned for his cameraman to stop recording. Then he turned to me with a cold smile. Let me explain how this works. I have 7 million followers. By tomorrow morning, they'll believe whatever I tell them. Claire's father nodded. You should listen to him. Marcus leaned closer. You have two choices. Agree to marry Claire and become her caregiver, or I release an edited version of today's footage. I'll tell the world you used Claire for her money, cheated on her, and abandoned her after the accident. My parents have nothing to do with this. They will when strangers begin showing up at their home. My hands tightened. He saw my anger and smiled. You think people investigate before attacking someone online? They don't. They react. And I control what they react to. How many families have you threatened like this? As many as necessary. So you've manipulated previous stories. I shape narratives. That's why people follow me. I reached into my jacket and placed my second phone on the table. The screen showed a live broadcast. More than 40,000 people were already watching. Marcus stopped breathing. I turned the camera toward him. Would you like to repeat that last part for your followers? The story collapses. The comments moved faster than I could read them. People had heard everything. Adrian admitting that his medical emergency was a lie. Claire's parents demanding that I become her lifelong caregiver. Marcus threatening to edit footage and send his followers after my family. Marcus lunged toward the phone. Turn that off. I stepped back. You wanted the public to judge me. Let them judge all of us. His cameraman checked another phone and went pale. Marcus, we're losing followers. How many? Thousands. And several sponsors are asking for an explanation. Marcus turned to Adrian. You said Ethan would panic. Adrian stared at the floor. You told me you could handle him. Claire watched them, finally understanding that the people she had trusted were willing to sacrifice anyone to save themselves, including her. Marcus's channel lost hundreds of thousands of followers a week. Former guests came forward with recordings and evidence that he had manipulated their stories. Sponsors cancelled their contracts. Several victims filed lawsuits. His platform suspended his account while the allegations were investigated. Days later, Marcus and Adrian appeared outside my parents' house. Marcus looked as though he hadn't slept. He dropped to his knees before I could speak. Tell everyone it was staged, he begged. Say it was a social experiment. No, I'll lose everything. You threatened my family. I was angry. You admitted to destroying innocent people for content. Marcus pointed at Adrian. He asked me to do it. He said Claire's family would pay me after you agreed to take her back. Adrian's face twisted. You said you were helping me. I lost my career because of you. You were already manipulating people before I met you. Marcus slapped him. Adrian shoved him. Within seconds, they were fighting on my parents' lawn, accusing each other of fraud, blackmail and betrayal, while 3 neighbors recorded the entire thing. I didn't intervene. I walked inside and closed the door. 4 years, I had believed revenge would feel like fire. It didn't. It felt like silence, like finally closing a door on a room where everyone had been screaming. Claire loses everything. Claire called me from the hospital after learning that I had sold my shares in her company. Those shares had always been legally mine. I had invested my savings during the company's earliest days, but Claire had treated them as if they belonged to her. How could you sell them? She shouted. Because they were mine. The new investors now own more of the company than I do. That's how percentages work. You built this company with me. I built it while believing we were building a future together. Her voice broke. Ethan, I've already lost my ability to walk. Isn't that enough? Her condition was not something I celebrated. No decent person should celebrate another human being's disability, but her injuries did not erase the lies, manipulation or choices that came before them. This isn't punishment for your accident, I said. I'm separating my life from yours. You're destroying me. No, Claire, I'm simply no longer saving you. I ended the call. I resigned from the company, changed my number, and took my parents on the trip they had postponed 4 years. We spent 2 weeks near the coast. My mother laughed more during those 14-1 than she had during the previous 14 months. My father woke before sunrise every morning and walked along the beach. Sometimes I followed him. Sometimes we said nothing. I had been given another lifetime, and for the first time, I understood that second chances were not meant only for revenge. They were meant for choosing differently. While we were away, Claire's company collapsed under debt and internal conflict. She was forced to sell what remained. Her parents continued searching for Adrian. When they finally found him, they demanded that he care for Claire. Adrian refused. I never promised to marry her, he said. You called her that night, her father replied. She was injured because she came to you. I didn't make her drive. It was almost word for word what Claire had said about me in my previous life. The circle had closed. But the story was not finished. The secret none of us expected. Several months later, the police contacted me. Claire's parents had been arrested after unlawfully confining Adrian in an attempt to force him to accept responsibility for their daughter's care. Adrian was rescued and taken to the hospital with serious injuries. Claire and her parents faced criminal charges. I had no intention of becoming involved until Adrian requested to see me. When I entered his hospital room, he stared at me with hatred. "You were supposed to be in that car," he said. I stopped. "What did you say?" "You were supposed to go with her. You were supposed to protect her." A cold sensation moved through my body. Adrian's eyes filled with panic. "Why did you change it? Why did you let her go alone?" He remembered. Somehow, Adrian remembered our previous life. In that life, he had received the healthy, successful Claire while I remained trapped in a hospital bed. In this life, he had expected history to repeat itself. "You knew the accident would happen," I said. "I knew you would save her, so you called her deliberately." He looked away. "I thought everything would return to the way it was." "You mean you thought I would be destroyed again? You weren't supposed to remember." I leaned closer. "You wanted my life, Adrian, but you never wanted my sacrifice." He began shouting as security moved toward the door. "This is your fault. All of it. You should have taken her place." I left him screaming. Claire was being treated in a secured room nearby while awaiting trial. When she saw me, her eyes widened. "Ethan." I remained near the door. She studied my face. Then she asked the question that confirmed everything. "Why didn't you protect me this time?" The room seemed to grow colder. "You remember too?" Tears filled her eyes. "I woke up after the accident. I thought you would be beside me. I thought you would have saved me again. You expected me to sacrifice my life for you. After what you did to me, I made mistakes in our first life. Mistakes. I was overwhelmed. You abandoned me. You refused to help with my treatment. You allowed my parents to be destroyed while you built a new life with Adrian. I was young. You were old enough to understand cruelty." Claire began to cry. "I thought there would be time to fix it. You visited me near the end and told me to let go." Her face collapsed. "I didn't know you were going to die. You simply didn't care enough to check." She reached toward me. "Ethan, we've both been given another chance. Maybe that means we're supposed to start again." I stared at her hand. In another lifetime, I would have crossed oceans for that hand. Now I felt nothing. "You were given another chance," I said. "And on the very first night, you made the same choice. I didn't know you remembered. That shouldn't have mattered." She went silent. "If you had truly regretted what you did, you would have chosen differently even if I remembered nothing. Instead, you ran to Adrian again because you believed I would still be there to absorb the consequences. Please, you don't miss me, Claire. You miss the man who protected you from yourself." She lowered her head. "I'm sorry. Maybe you are. Can you forgive me?" I thought about my mother smiling beside the ocean, my father walking freely beneath the morning sun, the life they had lost the first time because I had refused to see Claire clearly. "No," I said, "not this time." The final consequences. The legal cases continued. Claire's parents were convicted for their role in Adrian's unlawful confinement and injuries. Marcus faced lawsuits from several people whose lives he had damaged through fabricated content. Adrian suffered a severe psychological breakdown during a confrontation at the hospital. He attacked Claire before security could intervene. She later died from complications related to her injuries. Adrian was transferred to a secure psychiatric facility where he would remain under permanent supervision. Before Claire died, she left me one final voicemail. Her voice was weak. "Ethan, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I spent our lives believing your love had no limit. I thought I could choose Adrian whenever I wanted and still return to you when things went wrong." She paused to breathe. "I didn't understand that love can end." Another pause. "I'm sorry about your parents. I'm sorry about what happened to you. I'm sorry I only understood after becoming the person who needed saving." The message ended. I listened once, then I deleted it. Forgiveness is personal. Some people forgive because it frees them. Others walk away because reopening the door would destroy the peace they fought to rebuild. I did not spend the rest of my life hating Claire, but I did not forgive her either. I simply stopped carrying her. A different ending. A year after the night our wedding was cancelled, I stood in my parents' garden. My mother was planting herbs near the kitchen window. My father was complaining that she had taken over the entire yard. They argued for 5 minutes. Then they left. I watched them from the porch, holding a cup of coffee, while sunlight moved across the grass. In my first life, I had believed love meant sacrifice without limits. I was wrong. Love without respect becomes permission. Love without boundaries becomes a weapon. And loyalty given to someone who repeatedly betrays you is not devotion, it is self-destruction. Claire once warned me that I would regret losing her, but standing there, listening to my parents laugh, I finally understood the truth. I had not lost Claire on the night before our wedding. I had escaped her. And sometimes the person walking out of your life is not taking your future with them. Sometimes they are clearing the way for it. If this story kept you listening, subscribe. For more emotional stories about betrayal, second chances, and the moment hidden truths finally come to light, and tell us in the comments, should Ethan have forgiven Claire after learning that she remembered their first life? Or were some betrayals simply too deep to forgive?